Chris, I hope you're having a great day, sir. Welcome into the game in T-Town.
I am. I hope you are doing the same. Good to be with you as always.
Hey, we're having a lot of debates here. I mean, a lot of debates. Okay, like we get into food up here in Tuscaloosa. Some. I mean,
okay.
Is it ribs? Is it barbecue for 4th of July? Like, what's your go-to? What do you do on the grill well, Chris?
Well, I tell you, I love ribs. And man, it just makes me think about it. I hate to even you talk about it, I get so hungry. I love ribs. I probably need to stay away from it, but I like barbecue. Ribs would be my favorite. I'm going to tell you something. Something is simple. I did something about I don't know, it was last weekend, and it seems real simple. Just a good hamburger. I'm talking a good hamburger.
Sure.
Where you put the good ground meat and just kind of play with some different things. I had that, and I ate that last week, and I thought, my God, I've never had a hamburger so good. It certainly will take you away from getting anything out anymore. It's just not the same. But I would probably say ribs are my favorite. If I have time, maybe do a brisket or something like that. I don't do a whole lot because it's just me. But man, I'm a rib guy. I really love that, and I could sit there right now. I'd like to be doing this show with you in Dreamland as well.
Hey, we could do that.
We could do that, and it would be a lot of that nice bread just sucking up that sauce. That's heaven right there.
Well, Chris, like when I go out and I do remotes at Dreamland, I don't have any problem getting guests to come see me. Like I have a lot of in-studio guests when I'm at Dreamland.
Yeah, I would be yelled at because I'd be getting barbecue sauce all over the equipment. I'd probably be never invited back. But no, that's just heaven. There's just nothing like some good ribs. And in fact, it was you mentioned this when I had my open heart surgery a few years ago.
Sure.
So I'm in the hospital, and I don't know. Okay, you get back, and you can't drive for 6 weeks. I'm getting all these instructions, and you should, this is what dietary, restrictions and what you should do and all that. And I'm like, I've got a craving for ribs. How long can I have? And they said, no. Stay away from that. This was in May of 2015, and I broke down. I was a good boy until 4th of July, and I had me some ribs at that time, and that was my first. But that's what I kept thinking about in the hospital. Man, when am I going to be able to get my hand on some ribs again?
That was your motivation.
That's it. That was it.
Hey, Chris, Pete Golding today mentioned as a guy to keep our eye on, as an up-and-coming guy. CBS Sports did the article and giving Pete Golding some love and just kind of saying, hey, this is a guy that you kind of want to keep your eye on, a 35-year-old that has kind of worked up the ranks pretty quickly, defensive coordinator in Tuscaloosa. What do you see in Pete Golding?
Oh, I think he's really bright. I don't want to compare. They're a little bit different personality-wise, but reminds me a little bit, mainly just the look. The beard is a little better kept, but it reminds me a little bit that Pete's beard is a little better kept than Matt Patricia, who's obviously the head coach of the Lions now and was the defense coordinator for Bill Belichick in New England. Now, it's a little different. Pete is Patricia was an aeronautical engineer major and just kind of really uniquely smart. Pete's, different and from a different background, doesn't have that background, but is a really bright guy. I think that we saw last year he was the guy that was best able to kind of make decisions in terms of play calling. That's an art. You can know a defense, you can teach, but play calling offensively or defensively, it's a little bit of an art. It's a little bit of handling it under pressure, having a feel for things and making adjustments on the fly. I think Pete's really bright. I think he's got a very bright future, and it won't be his phone will be ringing, and he'll have an opportunity to further his career down the road. But I think he's a bright guy and probably will be around in that position for a while. And maybe he's the type of guy who don't know yet that he may wait for the right type of job. And hopefully for Alabama, if he can do the type of job that I think he can do, he may be there for a while. May not be there as long as Kirby was there. It's kind of hard to expect, but I think this guy has got a lot of ability. He's very bright, and he works and understands the pressures of working for Nick.
Chris, how much do you think that played into the decision making for Nick Saban, looking at a guy that he says, I'm going to get him more than just 1 year, that I'm going to get him for a few years? How much would you think was that in the thought processing for Nick Saban?
Well, I think you'd like to have a guy that you can groom and stay there longer, but you never know, because no one's going to tell you, yeah, coach, I'd like the job. I'm going to be here a year and then I'm going to be gone. I don't know that I think he may think that he's the type of guy that would likely be there for a few years, but you don't know that. I think what ultimately got it is his performance last year on the staff. So when we talk about, like everything was a disaster at Alabama last year, and it wasn't. It just didn't end the way, people thought. There was some stability in Pete Golding, and there was a guy that really did the type of things that Nick appreciated. So I think if there's anything that just kind of, pardon the pun, tipped the tide in his favor, I think it's the fact how he performed last year and how he did his job, and how he kind of rose up to be the play caller. I think it was as simple as that. I really do. Certainly other places he could have gone. I also know this, that had he not hired Pete would have been a play caller and a defensive coordinator making a lot of money at any number of places. A place like Oklahoma probably would have selected Alex Grinage. That was the better fit for him. But other big-time programs would have loved to have brought in Pete Golding as the defensive coordinator. And I think Nick knew that, and he had him on his staff, and the transition would be easier and make more sense. So with all the other moves that they need to make, this kind of provided some stability of a guy that, he could trust. And when I mean trust, I don't mean that the guys that were there last year couldn't trust, but he could trust that they were going to do things the way that he wanted them done. And I think it was the performance last year that ultimately got Pete the job. And, again, the reputation that he had with the job that he did, and the fact that he was going to lose him and not keep him on his staff by bringing in another guy and keeping him on the staff or be a co-coordinator. Pete was going to get a better job than that. So I think Nick said, hey, look, he's a good fit. And maybe I would have preferred to wait another year for giving him the role of the coordinator job. I think he is ready enough, and let's just go forward with him.
Chris, I'm just curious, as you look around the landscape of college football, give me a couple of guys maybe that you're looking at that are assistant coaches that you're looking at it from an evaluation. I know the way that you evaluate players, but I assume that you probably do the same way with coaches, looking at it going, hey, this guy checks all the boxes. This guy could be something 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years down the road. We could be talking about this guy maybe being one of those blue-chip head coaches.
Oh, yeah. I think there are a number of those guys. I can remember looking at, last year having certain guys that I thought were really good. And you think about guys like a Neil Brown that's a really good coach, and now he's moved on and gotten his job. I think right there right in your area, the Alabama Birmingham coach is an outstanding coach, and I think Bill Clark is the Neil Brown type of guy. The Scott Satterfield type of guy. He's the next. In fact, I think he could have been it last year. That he's maybe number one on my list of bright guys that I think is ready to get a big time job. And when I say big time, certainly Neil getting the West Virginia job. That's the type of job that I think he can be really successful with. So the openings that take place now, I don't know, and people might say, and I know there's going to be the rumors even getting more rampant with the president resigning at Auburn that, all right, so what's going to happen at Auburn? Would they go and hire a guy like Bill Clark? Probably ought to give it consideration, but that they're not going to do that. They're not going to go and hire the Alabama Birmingham coach. But I tell you what, I think he'd be a great coach for a big Power 5 job, and I think he'll have his opportunity. I think he does a phenomenal job. And I think he would head my list of bright up-and-coming coaches that are at the group of 5 that would be really good fits at Power 5 jobs.
I think sometimes we do overlook it a little bit when you look at UAB of what happened to that program and able to redevelop and recruit and get a program that's competing for conference championships.
No, it's amazing. He's recruiting well with what his resources are. He's an outstanding coach. I mean, he outcoaches people at that level. I mean, that's what you look for. You know, listen, there are ways you can go. You can take chances on assistants, and I think they can be very successful, no doubt about it. But I think when you get that experience at that level, I think you're proving it. Now, here would be my advice to Bill Clark is get the right job. I mean, and be careful because you can be really, really good if you go and, it's not going to be open because they just hired Les Miles. But if you go and take the Kansas job, well, you can be a great coach. You're not going to win. It's just not going to happen. If you're Bill Clark, you don't take the Rutgers job because then it'll be so long, it's been nice knowing you because you're not going to win there. It doesn't matter if you do a good job there. The good job there, you're not going to win and you're not going to have success. But I think if you go to a place that can win, if there's an opening in the ACC, you can make a move there. I mean, if you're going in the SEC, I think if you're a guy like Mark Stoops, for example, at Kentucky, I think he's done a phenomenal job there. I think you could have a good career at Kentucky and be appreciated, go to bowl games. But I got asked this the other day, and I'm just giving this an example for coaches. Because somebody asked me there, hey, do you think Mark Stoops can get us over the hump in Kentucky? And I'm like, what? I mean, he is getting you over the hump. You're not going to win the East at Kentucky, okay? That's not going to happen probably in many lifetimes. I mean, you realize that how much the stars are going to have to line. You're going to have a year like last year at Kentucky. You're going to have Tennessee, Florida, Georgia all collapsed at the same time. So you're not going to win the East. So, my advice to a guy like Mark Stoops, if they begin to start questioning you, if the Florida State job comes open, you better run for a job like that. Now, I think if you're a guy like Joe Moorhead at Mississippi State, that's going to be awfully tough for that guy because somehow they think because they were ranked in number 1 for a short term that you can compete and win big at Mississippi State. Well, you're not. I mean, winning big is winning 8 games and doing that consistently. So I think you got to be careful where you go because if you take a job in the SEC that's not one of the 6 or 7 big boys, and they expect you to compete. I mean, if you expect to go to South Carolina with all their resources and all their fan support, and you're expected to win, what the heck are you saying? South Carolina's won 1 conference title in their history, 1969 in the ACC under Paul Dietzel. I mean, you're not going to win titles there. So I think you got to be smart if you're any one of these young coaches. Go where you have a chance to compete. So, you're Neil Brown, you're at West Virginia. You can win. You can go to bowl games. Scott Satterfield went to Louisville. It's a decent job there. They'll be patient with you. And you're in the ACC. Right now, there's only Clemson that is at an elite level. Florida State should be, and if they don't fix things quickly, they'll make a change. Miami's underachieved, but everybody else is just, hey, you got your shot to be competitive, and maybe in a rare year can be better than competitive. But I think there are a lot of jobs at the Power 5 level that are dead-end jobs, which is why I think it's smart for a guy like Chris Peterson to be patient. Now, he had some personal issues. I think it's smart for a guy like Brian Larson to be patient at Boise State because you know what? It's a much better job that he has right now than maybe some of the places that, quite frankly, you're not going to be able to win in their leagues.
Chris, I was calling, a caller called a couple of calls ago and was asking about Texas. And I said, I'm going to say this for you. When you look at Texas, Tom Herman, going right there into year number 3 in Austin. What do you think about the Longhorns? They got 10 wins last year, 5 returning starters, 3 on defense returning. Schedule that is okay, but what do you think about Tom Herman and the Longhorns?
I think he's making progress. I like some of the improvements on defense, to where I think that they have a chance. And if they continue to improve that defense to where they might be the one team in that league that can consistently play really good defense along with maybe being pretty good offensively. Now, right now, I think there are a couple of teams that do it. At their level, Iowa State under Matt Campbell does a nice job, and certainly Gary Patterson plays good situational defense at TCU. But Texas gets different level of players. Tom's recruiting well. He's got some real challenges because Jimbo and Texas A&M are lights out as well. But Texas is recruiting well, and last year you mentioned they've got to build on a better start. They really have struggled off and early, started slow. They get Louisiana Tech the first week, then it's LSU the second week. I don't anticipate them beating LSU, but I want to see them, if they can get off to a little bit better start and play better, because they've gotten better as the years gone along. I think LSU, Oklahoma are, in my opinion, are likely losses. And I think the swing games are going to be at TCU, and I think at Iowa State and at Baylor are going to be challenges for them. But I like where they are. I think they're getting closer to Oklahoma, but I still think Oklahoma is the better team in the Big 12. But there's no reason why Texas can't be at least approaching where Oklahoma is. So we'll see. There are ways to go, but I think they're getting better. And last year's season was at least a positive sign. Now you got to build upon it. Now you got to continue to do a better job in certain things like not getting off the slow starts. I mean, losing to Maryland 2 years in a row is inexcusable. And that was just poor preparation, and that can't happen again.
Let's stay in your state. Thibodaux, Louisiana, the Manning Passing Academy. What is beneficial for all these quarterbacks kind of get together? I know it's a fraternity. These guys are competitors, but at the end of the day, they're also a little unique fraternity. What can those guys pick up from all the Mannings and the Manning Passing Academy for the college side of the quarterbacks?
Oh, yeah, it's great. I usually go there every year, and it's always a great opportunity for young players to learn. Because here's the thing, and Peyton and Eli get into it and work, but it's the really good quarterbacks, like Tua and guys like that these young kids, the high school kids, can get to go and learn from. So with those guys being campers, so it's kind of like the camp, instructors, the college players learn a lot, and the young kids, many of them that are going to be, high school caliber recruits, are learning from, the college kids as well as Manning. So it's kind of an extension. It's really good because it's really good fundamental technique of quarterbacking, and it's how to call a play, how to command a huddle, how to get to the line of scrimmage, all the little nuances that you get to learn from, obviously, two of the best that we've seen and obviously some of the best that are in college football. So I think it's a win-win for everybody, and certainly for the college guys, I think you'd get them to admit in most cases they learn an awful lot. The little things you can learn from and get a feel that can help you going into your college season. So it is a lot of fun. I've always enjoyed it. They do a phenomenal job, and they work them hard, and it's a really good learning experience.
Hey, Chris, I know we take you to the website, LandryFootball.com. Jonah Williams going down with a shoulder surgery. How tough is this for the Cincinnati Bengals?
Well, it's tough. He was going to be plugged in at left tackle. They're, obviously going to have to make an adjustment there. For Jonah, I feel bad because, now what it is he basically loses a year. He's going to have to spend this time on rehab, which, you certainly can look at film and you can do things, but you lose a whole year of development because when you're rehabbing, You're, as I like to say, you're trying to get back to ground zero, to a starting point. So it's tough. It's the ugly part of our sport. The injury rate is a lot higher than anywhere else, and we seemingly have one of these rookies every year goes down. And a couple of years ago, it was the kid that was with Chargers, Forrest Lamp, Western Kentucky kid, who I loved a lot. He hadn't been healthy since. I mean, here's a guy that I thought was going to be a really, really good player. And, he's right now like a rookie again because he hasn't been able to develop, and we lose sight of that. So hopefully, get well. I hate, shoulders. Shoulders are even worse for an offensive lineman to deal with than knees because of what they've got to do and their handwork and their punches. And so just going to take time. Very, very tough for him. It hurts the Bengals, but it hurts him as well for his development. But you get into this business, you get into this sport. It's all part of. It's the toughest thing for a player because when you're rehabbing, no one sits there and looks forward to the rehab work, and you got to be really motivated because it's a lonely thing to do. You don't have got the trainers, the rehab guys, but you don't have your teammates that are working with you to help that. You've got to have that self-discipline, and he'll have it, but it is tough. It's tough. He wanted to be out there playing and starting this year, and he would have been.
Speaking of all the NFL guys, whether it's Mark Ingram, whether it's Dalvin Tomlinson, whether it's Julio Jones, whether it's Marlon Humphrey, I mean, I think there's 60-something guys representing the University of Alabama in the National Football League, and that number will be trimmed down as we get closer to the initial, first game. But what does it mean for Alabama that a lot of these guys return to Tuscaloosa to train leading up to the season? I mean, that's got to be a huge value for Nick Saban and the recruiting side of things.
Oh, yeah, and that's why you really want to embrace it and bringing those guys back. In fact, if you want to go back to the heyday when Miami was great, a big part of it is those guys. Now, a lot of it is, a lot of guys like to be in South Beach in the, the off season and their training. But the fact they'd all go back there was a lot of that, it's your time now. You're the next guy out. I'm going to be watching you. Hey, you need me, well, you get a lot of that. And when you have, obviously, an elite facility, that's a big part of why it's advantageous to build your facilities that develop that. And you invite your guys, your former players, to come back and be part of the program and be kind of that, a shoulder to lean on and say, yeah, I've been there. It might be an encouragement, a help of a certain way, but it also may be just for a younger guy that, hey, your turn's coming. You're not there yet. I remember when I was in your same shoes, and look at me now. And it's certainly big, to have a big influence to have guys that are playing at the highest level and are successful, and to realize, hey, they were in my same situation. If I heed their advice and I do what this staff tells me to do, I could be there one day. So I think it's a tremendous advantage because it's like a recruiting tool in and of itself, and that word gets out. And I think it's a big part that helps you kind of sell in recruiting. This is what we have. This is what your future looks like. If you come here and you do what we tell you to do.
Hey, Chris, final question. This likeness, image, making a money off your name, the state of California moved in the direction to allow that, and it's going to take a couple of years to kind of get implemented. The NCAA, Mark Emmert, said, hey, listen, if you guys do this, you're not going to be participating in championships. You're not going to be hosting championships. That was really a poker face. It was a bluff by Mark Emmert. California didn't listen. They passed it yesterday. They're moving in that direction. The NCAA says they would consider it. But I want to pick your brain on the coaches. What do you think the coaches are sitting there thinking about with these players and, the locker room division? Quarterback will make more than a punter and a punter. I mean, you got to think of your coach. You got to look at it and go, man, this could be a nightmare with this likeness, image, making money and endorsements off the field.
Well, and it's crazy because how many players are going to fit into that category? A very small percentage. Even let's take a place like at Alabama. I mean, certainly Tua and a handful of other guys. Most of those guys maybe won't fit into that category. But here's what it's going to do. It's a license to cheat. So here's how it would play out now. If you allow this to happen, then you can have big booster runs a car dealership, runs XYZ business. So-and-so, Joe Blow, can now come out, shake a few hands, spend a half an hour, and, could give him $10,000, $20,000, whatever you want to give him. And, that's going to be allowed, and you're going to control that. There's no way you're going to control that. So what you're going to be doing is setting up a license to cheat, and you're going to have no way to really control it because it's going to be allowed that, you can make money on your license. How are you going to control that? You can't. I have really big problems with it. I have a real problem with a lot of the national media today saying, these poor kids get nothing. I think that is asinine, pardon my French. They get an awful lot. They get a college education. You're a learned individual. You know what things cost. A lot of people out there know they send their kids to school. That's worth a lot of money. The other thing is, if you want to pay off the likenesses, that's one thing, but paying players as a whole, most programs can't do it because of Title IX, you've got to pay other sports. In this case, you could pay likeness of a few players, but as you mentioned, what is that going to cause in your locker room? The problem there, I think you're opening up a Pandora's box. It's kind of like this transfer portal. They thought it was a good idea. Let them free, let them go. Everybody thinks it's a great idea. Now, 50% of the guys that entered the transfer portal, they got no home. Because once they leave, school's not obligated to keep their scholarship back for them if they want to come back. And so they don't think about the 99% of the players. They think about the 1% where you would keep your scholarship open if a kid wanted to come back. Well, how are you going to really police this on the likeness? You will not. I think it's going to cause some imbalance, cause a lot of problems, and I think it's going to cause a real issue because now you're going to deal with a way for schools to legally cheat now by going out and saying, you know what, we're going to buy some players. We're going to, in recruiting, say, look, it's not going to be, look at what we do, look at our success, look at our route to the NFL. It's going to be, hey, let me tell you what we got. We got XYZ. You come here. Here's your marketing agreement. You can show up, and this is what you're going to make. If that's where we really want to go, I mean, think about that. That's certainly not what I envision. I love the NFL, spent 30 years in it, still work in the league, and I love college football. They're different, and I don't like college football being like the NFL, and I don't like the NFL being like college. They're different for a reason, and I just don't like this whole likeness stuff at all, and I think they better get a hold on it because it could be disastrous to college football.
Chris, take a minute and talk about LandryFootball.com.
Well, we, at this time of year, just spend so much time breaking down the college rosters, the NFL rosters, and that's what we're doing right now. In our notebooks every day, we're keeping you up to date on all the recruiting activity. Alabama, as you know, activity, guy decommits, what does it really mean? They've added commitments. We tell you about the players, how they fit, not just, hey, he's a 5-star, he's a 4-star. Okay, that's fine. Let's help you understand what the guy is, how he fits, so on and so forth. So that's what we do for everybody around the country in the college notebooks, the NFL notebooks, what's going on all the OTA activities. We get film room nuggets on what we've seen in the OTAs, what we've seen in spring practice, as well as, again, our detailed film room breakdowns of all the college, all the NFL rosters. So it's one-stop shopping football. You can get all the free podcasts there. We're looking to expand it. We've got an SEC podcast every day on the SEC podcast. We've got a Big Ten podcast, football podcast every day. So a lot of fun. Great. If you like football, you're going to love LandryFootball.com. Check it out. We got our scouting season special where you can get all of this information plus get all the football season. If you want to just try it out for a month, you can check that out as well. So LandryFootball.com is where you want to be to get inside the game from a coaching and scouting perspective.
Chris, as always, we thank you so much for your analysis. Have fun at the Manning Passing Academy. We'll talk to you next Wednesday. Thank you for being a part of the show.
Thank you for having me. Take care.